you in?
This is our time. The world's changed, and you are right in the center of it.
I don't know what's ahead, but all bets are off.
Canelo typically fights on two major dates a year, BC. One is Cinco de Mayo, which is, not necessarily the most historic date on the calendar, but he does fight on one other date that is very historic, which is Mexican Independence Day, which is in about 2 weeks. And he has no opponent. To my knowledge, he has no intentions of fighting on that date, even though he may have at some point. Dude, what on earth is going on with Canelo and Golden Boy and DAZN?
Not enough answers. We've been in this holding pattern seemingly the entire quarantine of we know Canelo is going to come back this fall, but against who? And the conversation of the opponents, which started with WBA super middleweight champion Callum Smith, who's unbeaten from England. He's exciting to a certain degree. And Billy Joe Saunders, another title holder at 168, who certainly can find an interesting challenge in their style-wise against Canelo. Then those names went away, and now they're back as the leading contenders. And along the way, we've seen some others of varying degree, most of the kind of guys we don't want to see Canelo against. This has been a massive fail from my point of view. And look, there's already been a lot of pressure on DAZN overall with a lot of the rumors of their demise. Can they keep putting on big fights under that business model? Obviously, the quarantine came at a wrong time for everybody, them as well. But they're committed and they're on the books to paying Canelo Alvarez $35 million per fight and paying Golden Boy a reported $40 million overall to put on the fight, pick the opponent, all that stuff. Now it's just stretched out to the level where there's no buzz at all about the biggest star in the sport, arguably the sport's most important fighter, coming back. Both the Smith fight and both the Saunders fight, look, I can get excited about either one from a boxing purist point of view, especially if you did the right kind of media tours to get Billy Joe's mouth out there to insult Canelo and get the drum beating. But now we're talking about Canelo coming back in November, and I just feel like nobody cares, Luke, and that's a really rough spot to be in. Saunders and Smith aren't going to attract the casuals or the part-time boxing fans. Triple G would, and I know that they probably would be fighting Triple G right now if it wasn't for Gennadi's weird decision that he wants to do a mandatory first that he promised against some guy we never heard of. All in all, though, whether you want to put the blame on DAZN, Golden Boy, Canelo, or all three, this is pretty much a disaster because we've seen when boxing initially came back from the quarantine and there just wasn't anything happening to grab you. Now we're starting to see the pickup of some good matchups. We had one over the weekend. Showtime Boxing kicking in. We got some pay-per-views coming. Fox is back. We're getting a little bit of momentum. You need that Canelo fight there, as to quote Scott Coker, the tent pole, a placeholder of this is the weekend I see him. And for this to come down in this spot, I'm not saying it's easy for DAZN when you owe the guy $35 million, finding the right opponent that makes sense. But at some point, you got into the Canelo business to sink or swim, right? You paid all that money to make this happen. Make it happen. You paid Gennady the money. Make it happen. I don't care who you have to please or what you have to do. DAZN launched on the idea of Anthony Joshua and eventually getting us Canelo Triple G3. Just make it happen already, because I'm at a point where I'm even sick of hearing about it and going a whole year with Canelo either not fighting or maybe coming back in November for something that ends up feeling ho-hum. Not a good look overall, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add except a couple of things here. I know that this is a Showtime product, so everyone's going to be like, oh, these guys are just bashing DAZN to do that. Well, let me say something. I'm a DAZN customer. I've been a DAZN customer since the first day you could sign up for it. I think their name is stupid, but I like, in theory, what the product is supposed to stand for. I did not cancel my subscription during the pandemic, and I didn't log in one effing time. I think the first time I logged in again was... God, I'm not even sure when it was, but it was relatively recently. I just spent months not even using it. I did not cancel my subscription because I think boxing is in a better space when DAZN can succeed. And I mean that truthfully. But here's the thing. They've basically, their premise of launching relied on a few things. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but two of them are really important. One was that pay-per-view was dying. Even in this pandemic where millions of Americans are out of work, that is clearly not true. And I thought there was a time where maybe we were headed that way because DAZN had come around. WWE Network had essentially moved away from pay-per-view. UFC was doing something kind of weird by going to ESPN Plus, which was not traditional in that sense, but it's still basically kind of pay-per-view, and if you had cut out the middleman of the Comcasts and the Verizons and everybody else. Well, okay, I thought that was something worth taking seriously, but they have not been able to deliver on a consistent kind of product, even really prior to the pandemic, to make us believe that that was something that was really they were going to help usher in. If anything, there are as many or more boxing and UFC or MMA pay-per-views than, frankly, there kind of ever have been. There's been no real decline in that sense. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is, dude, if the most popular fighter in your sport can't get going on a regular clip, and not every fight has to be exciting, we can forgive, BC, and I think you would agree, the occasional Rocky Fielding matchup. Nice guy, overmatched, okay, whatever. You can let that one go on occasion if the other pieces of the puzzle are there. Even when they have him move up a bunch of weight classes, they still make him sit behind UFC fights, which people then defended in real time. This, like, cuck move where you're allowing another product to run over yours, sort of signaling the less importance of it, and then you can't find a reasonable fight for him, even when you sign the fighters all together there in the same space. I mean, you can make a million excuses about how boxing is hard to get the fights done, and it's expensive, and there's just a lot of sort of middlemen with who impede progress, and I'm sympathetic to that. But at some point, this was the claim you were making. The claim you were making was that you could get enough of them in-house. You could get enough of them in rotation, that you could put them out there long enough that pay-per-view would go away, and none of it has come true. I will not cancel my DAZN subscription unless and until DAZN gets rid of its combat sports profile. I don't know if they will, and if they will, I don't know when that will be. I will keep it. But to be clear, their central mission, which they told the world loudly they were after, they have not fulfilled it, and they've not even come close, BC. And I think that the Canelo fight, and interesting, is all emblematic of it.
Final point on this is just to echo what you said. It's not their fault that they launch a campaign that says we're going to kill pay-per-view, and then boxing pay-per-view becomes more valuable than it's ever been because we can't have live stadiums and a live gate and all that stuff. I'm just saying, hey, DAZN, you already got Canelo and Triple G under your stable. You're paying them stupid amount of money. You're overpaying them to make your name. The fact that they haven't fought, I'm not saying that fight is the fight that saves anything. I'm just saying you got into it to match those guys together. That's just an example of where are we at right now? What are we doing? Because if you can't even get them together on your own platform and make it work, then, forget about taking down boxing pay-per-view or competing in that space anyway. I'm just talking as a fan. I want to see these fighters fight. I want to see it matter. Boxing needs big fights right now, okay? Let's get Canelo back out there, and let's bang the drum and make it interesting.
Very quickly, over the weekend, Jose Ramirez defending, I believe, his WBO, WBC titles at light welterweight, so it's 140 pounds, basically, defeating Victor Postol. Are they going to set up the Josh Taylor fight for the full unification? What is your takeaway from the weekend there?
That's obviously the plan. Josh Taylor has a stay busy mandatory in September against a Asian man who I will not try to pronounce his name, but he should win that, and we should get this fight. Look, I want to shout out Top Rank. This was a fight on paper. Third time they tried to make it. Unfortunately, Postol had to fly to China in February just to find out the fight was canceled. This was one of the better hardcore fights, and I think it played out that way. It was a fun little chess match, and you got to give Postol credit for having an argument to have won at the end of the day. He loses a tight majority decision, and now you got to ask yourself this. Jose Ramirez, after the fight, wasn't really happy with his own performance. He got a little bit of flack. We do know that, as they said on the broadcast, his intangibles are the true elite things about him. His character, his cardio, his pressure, all that stuff. And it's not as if he's not a good boxer. He can do some things in there. But I don't think this fight, which was the final test to really get us excited about him and Josh Taylor, all 4 titles on the line. And oh, by the way, having that fight serve as the launch pad to maybe finally getting Terrence Crawford, the welterweight champion who's on his own island with Top Rank ESPN, an opponent that matters, an opponent where you can make a case that this guy might actually be able to give him trouble right now. We may see Terrence Crawford against Kell Brook, but we know it's an empty cupboard right now. He's not fighting the PBC guys at the moment. Top Rank is doing a good thing of getting these guys at 140 ready. But Luke, from what I saw there, I don't know. I've got to like Taylor, who had an easier handle against Postol than Ramirez did. And let's not forget, Terrence Crawford destroyed a prime Victor Postol. I just didn't get the feeling that Jose Ramirez has an extra level to his ceiling to get even better than we've already seen. And on this course, look, that's fine. He'll be a tough out, but I don't see him beating Josh Taylor, and I certainly don't see him putting a dent in Terrence Crawford.
Yeah, he sort of pinpointed that it was the lack of a crowd, which he typically feeds off of, that he was supposed to fight in February, and the fight was delayed twice, and maybe, could be. I think you're right. It was not the kind of, it's like, well, okay, you beat who you were supposed to beat. Postol only lost to who? Crawford, Taylor, and now Ramirez. I mean, he's not some chump. It's a solid win. But you're right. It wasn't the kind where you're like, oh, this is the guy that's going to take it from Josh Taylor. Still, anytime you can get full-on title unification and someone who can become only the 5th boxer at any point in history to have all the titles unified, it's something you should make. It's something we should look forward to.
Yeah, do you see, by the way,
BC.
Rougarou? You see Rougarou getting on Twitter afterwards saying,
No,
Jose
I
Ramirez,
didn't.
this is why you avoided me right there. We just saw why.
Interesting. He lost to Josh Taylor in his last contest, right?
He did, and that was an absolute classic. Close fight, yep.
Are you in?
This is our time. The world's changed, and you are right in the center of it.
I don't know what's ahead, but all bets are off.